All right, folks. Well, once again, into the breach we go. It is Friday. Might look a little bit different tonight. I've got two guest hosts, co-hosts with me. Adrian was not feeling well again, so filling in for her is Doc Z. And I've also got Ryan from the Freaking Awesome Paranormal Show. Um, we were supposed to have Lisa Marie from Key to the Other Side Paranormal on, uh, but she had some things going on, and we'll reschedule her for a later date. But I thought what we would do is we would continue with what we were going to talk about with her, um, which was the urban legend of the Black Volga, which comes from Europe, and then talk about some paranormal happenings in a park not too far from here, and whatever else we want to talk about after that. Dan, can you check and see if your phone is on, or maybe? Oh, you're on your phone, so
I can turn the volume down.
yeah, I don't know if it's some other ambient coming through. It was the same way that we had for Dave Schrader, but that sounds a little bit better. So
yeah, that's a weird sound coming through there.
yeah, and that was the same interference we had with Dave Schrader, and he thought maybe that we were catching an EVP or something like that. But
I wish it was that cool. Yeah.
right.
Hang on. It's not like I thought I just heard a word there.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's just So sometimes you hear things, you're like, oh, I think I hear something. Like I hear a word, but it's really nothing.
Right. Yep.
Probably what's going on.
So I don't know. Do you guys want to start off with the urban legend, or do you want to start off with something paranormal, or do you have? Well, let's start off with it this way. What obscure holiday is it today, Ryan?
God, hang on. I was actually looking up Black Volga.
Yeah.
And it looks like what's that show? What the movie called? Not Carrie, but it's another Christine, isn't it? Yeah. That noise is really annoying. And
Yeah,
it's weird.
I don't know what it is.
It's a Black Volga trying to get us. Is what it is.
Right.
It's a. I don't know. Let's see. Look it up. What holiday is today? Well, I'm really glad we got to do this on International Dark and Stormy Day.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate you guys taking your time out of your busy, dark and stormy schedules to come join us tonight and talk about the Volga, which is also a dark and stormy subject. So,
exactly.
We again, very happy dark and stormy day. Let's see what else is. National Donald Duck Day. He was my favorite Disney character, so
right.
That is, and National No Apologies Period Day.
Huh.
So no apologies. Period. Even if you're on your period, no apologies. Don't apologize for it. Just
right.
Use your mute button until you talk.
So very happy holidays, guys.
Yeah. So
yeah.
There, I think Dan decided to mute until we talk to him, so I think that's how we'll get around it. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So the Black Volga refers to an urban legend that came out of the Soviet bloc in around the 1960s, 1970s. And basically it's centered around a bunch of abductions and disappearances It was either disappearances of kids or different classes of people. Normally, what would happen is they would say that it was either a red or a Black Volga, which is a type of car that is made in the Soviet bloc. It's either a Gaz 21 or 24. So if you think of like a BMW, that's kind of what those cars were. Is they were BMW type car, which at that time.
I'll be right back.
Yep. So at that time, it was that car was more for affluent people, and government agencies used them as well. And that's another thing that they were thinking was the government agencies like the KGB or the NKVD were driving these cars. And maybe the people that were disappearing were the dissidents, the people who were standing up, the people who didn't want to go the way of the hammer and the sickle. But basically what would happen is they would say that once you see this car, you would disappear. And then within a day or two, they would find your mutilated body, not only mutilated, but exsanguinated and free of all blood. That's what one of the legends was talking about.
Imagine living back then, and you see that car coming. Just the fear that must have been instilled in people, and it it kind of goes back to like the early days when you'd be scared to, if you see like going to the dark woods or whatever, it's the superstition. If you see a black car, man, you better start running or better hide because you don't know if they're coming after you.
Well, right. And, although that car was prevalent, it did stand out because one part of the legend said that it was a jet black and it had white hubcaps or like white sidewalls, and then it had the white lace curtains in the window. And
That's scary.
Yeah,
it's almost like it reminds me of a hearse,
right?
With the curtains and the black car. It's not like as big as a hearse, obviously, but the way you're describing it, and they have the curtains pulled so you can do stuff to you,
right?
And nobody can see, what's going on in there. It's kind of like the real life rendition of like the Big Bad Wolf or whatever, something like that. Like it's gotten such a reputation that it's got almost a mythical type connotation to it.
And they don't know, what it was, and maybe it was, the KGB snapping people, or it was the NKVD taking care of people. But
in Russia, I would not be surprised if that was actually the case.
Well, no, and it wasn't just Russia. It was in that block of countries. So like Poland, Romania, Hungary, any of those Soviet bloc countries at that time, and it almost feels to me like it was a scare tactic told to people of, hey, you better toe the line because if you
don't speak out,
right?
Yeah, you're gonna get caught. But even that way now, it's probably that way out there. It's
right.
There could be some Black Volgas driving around out there. You don't know.
Well, and I kind of have a feeling that Russia might be sweeping back that way as far as the party line. It just has that feeling. But another thing that they said, there was a myriad of people who could be seen driving the car. And one of the people that they saw driving the car is Old Scratch himself. but usually they would see him driving and the car was red. So it
Not
was
surprising.
it was either a red or a black Volga. And I don't know, Dan, what do you think? I mean, there's stories out there that are told by, plenty village elders or, the seniors to the kids that, hey, behave or this will happen. What do you think about that?
Strigonona. Yeah.
Yeah, like the old Italian grandmas telling their kids, hey, behave. I know when we lived in the Pacific Northwest, there was a story about an old lady that lived up in the mountains called the Snaniat.
Yeah.
And basically what she would do is if she would come down off the mountain at night and she would walk around, and she had this bag over her shoulder, and she would walk house to house. And if she saw that the kids were being naughty, not listening to their parents, being rowdy, she'd walk up to their, get in the house, sweep them up in the bag, and throw them over the shoulder and go up into the mountain. And who knows what would happen with them. Some people say that they would stay up there till they behaved, or the Snaniat would, cook them up. So, I mean, there's every culture you look at, in my belief, has a story like this. And it's just you better toe the line and behave or else.
Yeah, but most of the stories are told to children to keep them in line. But this is more just to keep people in general in line with a political party.
Right.
They might start the stories up and then just drive a Volga around on purpose, not really doing anything, just to scare the crap out of people. And they'd be like, "Oh crap! No, maybe I shouldn't be talking shit because the Black Volga just drove by my house."
Right.
Right. Yeah, and that I don't know.
Even the name Black. Can you imagine trying to drive a car called a Volga? It just sounds bad.
It does.
Not the best sounding car name in the world. Ferrari, Porsche, Volga. Oh.
I mean, at least it ain't a Yugo.
That's true.
Have you guys heard of any stories like that at all?
I mean, again, as far as like people like trying to scare people, like that kind of stuff. I mean, all those folk legends about, again, the dark forest, or don't go someplace past, at night, because whatever witch of the woods of whatever country is going to get you and take you into a place, and they're all over the place. Different countries have different legends to scare people. I guess the Black Volga is the recent one, because communist Russia was not that long ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even when my dad was in the Navy, he was actually, the ship he was on was actually shadowed by a Russian trawler, but they didn't have any fishing nets on board. And
what are they fishing for?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you said you remember going up on deck and glassing them with binoculars and not seeing anything on deck.
Oh, no, yeah. You never saw any personnel on the deck. It was just a fishing boat. And you really didn't have, they didn't have lines over that you could see or anything, but they were just kind of trailing us. Now, one thing that we did is we would grind up our garbage and dump it from time to time. We burned as much as we could, but sometimes they would just dump some. And I'm sure if they had any kind of like a netting out behind them that they were towing, they might pick up a few things. Nothing much of worth to find, though.
Yeah.
Seems suspicious.
Right. But I think, I mean, as far as urban legend goes, I think that one's, interesting. You know, it's not like alligators in the sewer or anything like that, but
It seems more realistic to me than 10-foot alligators in the sewer.
right. Yeah.
Because it seems like something that would happen out there, and that's the kind of stuff that there was really like not like here, but nowadays that could happen here. I don't know, but I think back then, if you think about the communists and the KGB, talking about even the prisons, going in there, and it's like if you talk bad about someone in the party, you could be sent to prison and never heard from again.
Right.
And so I would not be surprised if that kind of stuff did happen. Some stuff got out, but not everything that happened over there got out.
Well, and like you said, I'm sure that happened all the way up until the wall fell in 1991.
Yeah.
So,
plus with the internet, private maybe not happening now because of they can stop internet, they can stop access to internet, but I guess it would get out more nowadays than it would back in say 1980s or back when. Or think about even East Germany and West Germany. If you tried to escape from East Germany to West Germany, you were shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they said they were supposedly victims were kidnapped and then murdered by the perpetrators to use their blood as a cure for rich Westerners and Arabs. So I don't know about that.
Right.
I don't know. That seems like kind of a far stretch.
Well, I mean, there is some claims that putting blood on your face does help some ailments, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to put anybody else's blood on my face.
Well, it's like that queen in England, or where was she at? Bloody Mary, who would bathe in her, I guess, I don't know who she got the blood from, but she bathed in blood.
Yeah. Spoils of war.
Yeah. So, but she would bathe in blood.
Yeah.
Supposedly to stay young.
So that is the legend of the Black Volga. I thought that was one that was a little bit interesting. So moving on, Dad and I were doing some research on this next subject a little bit earlier tonight, and this is actually a park that he and I have both been at. It's a park that's probably, 10-15 minutes away from us. And basically what it is it's a city park, and it's got two things going for it. It's got a really nice sledding hill. But unfortunately, on the right-hand side of the sledding hill, there's also a 3-place archery range. And people can just go out and do their archery practice anytime they want. And that plays into this story. So basically what this story is, I think it was January of 1998. There was a bunch of kids that were sliding down this hill. And at the time they were sliding, some adults thought that it would be fine to also go out and practice archery. Now, if you overshoot your sledding run, you're going to run right through the firing line of the archery range. And that unfortunately happened to this, I believe he was 8 years old. His name was Damon. It unfortunately happened to 8-year-old Damon. And he took an arrow to the eye, and it killed him instantly. And so basically what they say that happens is he makes himself visible to other kids that are on the hill sledding or in the area. And we were looking at Google Earth earlier, just to kind of refamiliarize ourselves with the area. And one thing that we saw was they've literally cut the hill in half now. They've planted trees across the top, so you can't start further up and get more distance. I think that's what the problem was, is when you start at the top of the hill, you'll carry more speed and you'll get into that firing line. And so basically what they're saying happens is he'll make himself known to kids. I don't know if he communicates to kids, but another thing that he'll do is if you're standing on the hill, summer, winter, whenever, you'll be standing on the hill and you'll feel a nudge from behind you, and they say that that's him trying to push you down the hill. It's really hard to get information on this. I've literally only saw one other person. It was like a 5-minute video on YouTube that they went out with the camera and they walked around. The woods behind the target range also are said to be have activity. And I know, Dan, you and I have been out there before, and not knowing anything happened there, I didn't feel anything at the time. I don't think you felt anything.
No.
Was there a news article about it? Was there anything happening, like as far as like coverage?
If there was, they were very small blurbs. I think I Googled it, and I think I picked up a Sun Times article, which Sun Times was the local paper, and it was maybe a 3 or 4 sentence blurb about it.
I mean,
So
maybe the family would have been like, okay, we'll sue the city or whatever,
right.
putting a sled run, but because the I'm assuming the archery is permanent. That's always there. The sled run is probably just a hill, not it's not meant to be a sled run. It's just a sled run. It's not like put there for purpose to be a sled run. It's just a hill that happens when it snows. It's happened to be good for sledding. It's an accident.
Right. Well, see, the thing is, Scott Park is that's all in the park together. It was the hill and there's a tennis courts, and then there's the archery range. But when we looked at it on Google Earth, they have trees that cut off the top of the hill, because there's a play set up at the top of the hill, and that was all one big piece at one point in time. So it looks like in response to that, they cut off the top of the hill.
Yeah, they should have done more as a way to like separate the archery range from the hill.
Right.
Knowing that it does happen to snow in Minnesota, and they probably would be kids going down such a big hill. They should be like, all right, we'll put like, I don't know, an orange mesh net or something like they have, kind of like the construction sites,
Yeah,
like, okay.
like snow fence.
Yeah.
Well, and we, my mom and dad and I actually lived we lived like 3-4 blocks away from there at one point, maybe half a mile.
Yeah, if that.
But we were moved away from the area when that happened. But yeah, I don't remember hearing anything about it when it happened. Of course, I was in junior high, but I really only learned about this. I was just on YouTube one day and I heard somebody talking about it, and I think I Googled it and I only saw that small blurb from the Sun Times about it. So, so
Wow.
either of you gentlemen have anything we'd like to talk about tonight? I talked about two things. Maybe if you guys have something to talk about, we could do that. I know we're just about a half hour in.
We had a team come out to the cabin last weekend to investigate, and they were in the woods, and they caught what they think is was a rebel yell in the woods behind the cabin. You can hear them talking, and you hear this loud scream or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep talking like nothing happened, but they caught it on their recorder.
Now, is that in the woods off the backside of the brick rancher?
Yeah,
or behind the cabin.
it's all behind both houses. But it was last weekend was the anniversary of the Battle of Cold Harbor, which is a big Civil War battle that took place in this area.
Yeah.
And during the week before, the Battle of Bethesda Church is what took place on the cabin's property.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all around the same time.
Right. And I could imagine. Well, I can't imagine the level of trauma that went on. You know, I was a Civil War reenactor for 10 years, and like I've said before, you know, I never went to any actual battlefields in the South, but I've been to a couple of battlefields up here, and even being up to battlefields up here, it's an uncanny feeling when you go out there. With just the amount of loss, you know, when you try and comprehend that in your mind of how many men were out there and just the finality of what happened on those days.
It's when you go out to places down here like Gaines Mill or Cold Harbor, and you in your mind, you know what happened there, and you know the amount of loss. But there's also a peaceful feeling you get when you're walking around those battlefields, and I try to like put myself into that situation. You know, in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is what happened. But lots of times when I'm walking around out there, you know, you kind of forget because it's so peaceful compared to what it was like, you know, back then.
Right.
But in the woods behind the cabin, it's a different feeling back there. It's like it's peaceful, but you feel like you're not alone.
Okay, yeah.
More so than I feel more confined, more like people are around me more than I do when I go to Cold Harbor or
right.
Gaines Mill battlefield. Not because I'm by myself.
I've been getting that feeling, well, at the sites that I volunteer at. Today was my last day volunteering 100% of my time at Dakota City. I will still volunteer there, but I'm giving more time to the train museum. But I get that feeling every time I go out to Dakota City where it's just, I'm not uncomfortable, but it's just there's people in certain buildings doing their normal day-to-day, and it's busy. Like in the depot I was in today, it's just full of people going around doing their normal thing. So it's crowded, but people are doing their thing.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is knowing more that there's stuff out there. Like if I went to the woods, oblivious to what's really happening in the world, you know, as far as the world we can't see, and just walked into the woods behind the cabin, I might feel completely different. The fact that I know that there's stuff out there, because I've caught stuff out there,
right?
You know, that's definitely going to alter my way of thinking. You know, I mean, I know they have caught EVPs at Gaines Mill and Cold Harbor. You know,
right?
But I don't just don't feel as like on edge, I guess, but not really super on edge, just because I just know more of what's out there behind the woods behind the cabin.
Yeah, and so I've got a friend that is sensitive to pictures. So when I've gone out there, I've sent her pictures of the buildings, and she'll tell me, I mean, I can feel it too, but she was like, well, I kind of want to work on it. So I would send her a picture, and she would say, well, this is what I feel. What do you feel? And last Saturday, because I'm volunteering at the Minnesota Transportation Museum in St. Paul, I took some pictures for her when I was up there. And the first picture I took for her was of the main entrance into the roundhouse. And quite literally. So I sent her this picture, and like 2 minutes later, she goes, I don't know how in the hell anybody stands in that door frame. And of course, I'm reading that going, okay, what do you mean? It kind of gets me freaked out. And she was like, well, she goes, it's just a ball of energy. And that's the thing is, it doesn't necessarily need to be bad. It could just be a ball of confusion with them not knowing where they're at, or a lot of people that are doing things. And I think that's all it is with that energy at Dakota City and energy at the Roundhouse is people are still, it's residual energy of them going about their business.
Yeah, and I think people that are more sensitive, like your friend who could see the ball of energy, would be more affected by it because they're more sensitive to it.
Yeah.
Compared to someone like myself or you or whatever, where it's not as bad.
Right.
As it is for them.
She said that she got dizzy and got a headache off of it. So she said when it's that a lot of energy, she gets dizzy and has to sit down, which I can understand.
There are times that I'll go places and it just feels different. I'm outside, I'm feeling fine. Walk in someplace, it feels this off, and they say,
right.
Your best tool when you go places is to trust yourself. And a lot of people like intuition, like something's not right, is usually not right when you feel something like that. Like when something's not right, it's probably not.
Yeah, well, it's like Dennis said when I was talking to him, like the first time you took him into the rancher, he said he took 2 to 3 steps in and he was like, this ain't right.
Yeah. And I had been working inside the cabin myself for I'd go in there and do work in there, but all the time. But every once in a while, they'd send me downstairs to, when the basement would flood because the sump pumps aren't working. I'd be in the basement, I'm in the house by myself, and I knew what happened, but I didn't know. I wasn't sure if there was actual activity in there. Of course, I'd be like, okay, I'm just coming down here. Don't bother me. Okay.
Yeah, a lot
to be on the safe side
approach.
Yeah. But again, that was when I came to him, I knew that there was something there because Howie had his experiences. But I didn't know there was anything there. I was just kind of like, okay, I'll be on the safe side. I will say, don't bother me, just in case there is something there. They'd be like, oh well, he said don't bother me, so now I won't. Like that was my logic in my head. I tell him don't bother me. Okay, well he said don't bother me, so I'm gonna leave him alone. I'm not sure if that's how it works. Yeah, well, I don't think so.
I have a feeling that whatever's in the basement don't play that game.
No. And I was downstairs in the basement telling him not to don't bother me. For the most part, he didn't. I didn't hear anything.
Right.
But now I hear things all the time.
Yeah. So I think we should let Dan chime in, and I know he's told me a story once or twice about a ghost experience he had. Dan, can you tell us more about that?
We're talking about South Carolina.
Yeah, when you and Doc went down to his plantation house.
Yep. Well, we were out in Northwest Washington State, out on the Hood Canal, and Doc said, "Well, since you're kind of in between jobs, how about you come with me and we'll fly down to Blackville, South Carolina, where I've got this house that I want to work on, and I want to turn it into like a bed and breakfast." So, okay, we'll do that. And he said he was going to pay my way and all of that kind of stuff. So, and we made meals and everything together. It was a good time. This thing was not just a house; it was like the White House. In fact, everybody knew it as the White House. It had the East Wing and a West Wing. It had a big colonnade across the front. Huge, big lights on chains. It was gorgeous. And then you went in the house, and then it was like, okay, this thing is really, really old. So I had my work cut out for me. I was doing electrical work. He had some carpenter guys doing carpenter work there, plumber. And basically we were just working on the house because he wanted to have it as a bed and breakfast. There was a big pool out back, but it looked in pretty tough shape. I don't think it had been used in a lot of time. So we would go drive around from time to time. We'd go out to get groceries or whatever. When we get the water, they did not like the water that was in the town in the pipes. So we would go out to the spring and collect jugs of water from the spring. Amazing, beautiful water. It's on YouTube. I can't remember the name of the place, but a lot of people go out and get the water there. It's supposed to be healing water. We brought it back, and then we'd be busy working on the house. I found I was up in the attic one day, and I was looking down the chimney, and on the side of the chimney there's a little chase down each side. And I took my flashlight and I was looking way down there. I'm like, what is that? It looks like a bucket or something like that. So I got a rope with a hook on it. I kind of fished it down there, and I couldn't quite get it, but it looked like it was a bucket full of bunny, and so from time to time I'd go back up there. Well, I got to go try it again. And I never could really get it, but I figured out where it was. So I told Doc, I think he was going to make an opening next to the fireplace and go in and get that thing. But there was all kinds of stuff up there from like the 1800s, little pieces of paper and, with chits, which is like a paper money given by somebody to be used at their establishment. If they owed you something, they could give you chits. You could come in and get it. Lots of old jewelry and stuff up there. It was just, you could stand up. It was probably 15 feet high up in that attic. Not very much insulation, because they really didn't need it down south. And the bottom of the house is up on kind of stilts, but not wooden. They're made out of like stone or brick to get off the termites. Termites didn't come in that way. But so we would work until usually late in the night. We'd have something to eat and then work a little bit more. And I was really tired one night, and it was hot, of course, in Georgia. And we had the lights out on the deck, but we had all the lights off inside. And I was staying in a little room on the upstairs on the front side. And then the stairs going up to the attic were right in front of my door. And I was sleeping, and I kind of woke up, and I was listening, because, cars are going by every now and then, or people be out walking or talking. And it must have been a good 11:30 at night. And I kind of out of the corner of my eye saw something. I kind of like turned and looked at it, and I'm like, am I really seeing this? There's like a Confederate soldier, but not like a soldier, more of an officer with the sword and all of the the boards and everything, walking up the stairs to the attic. I'm like, can that be real? I went back to sleep. The next morning, I thought about it. I told Doc, and he goes, yeah, a lot of strange things happen around here.
I guess when you have a house like that, you've got to just assume that's kind of stuff is going to happen, and just just let it go.
Yeah,
that is.
And then talking to some of the neighbors, they're real friendly too, but they were all like, "Oh yeah, this stuff like that goes on. We see lights up in there in the middle of the night, and we don't know what they are or why they're there."
You're talking about when I saw a soldier outside the window at the cabin, and it's like when you see something like that, it does. You don't really get scared. It's more of what am I looking at, or your brain doesn't quite comprehend what you're looking at. It's like that. Is that real? Or am I dreaming? Or But then by the time you realize what it is, it's already gone. You're like, oh shoot, okay, I just saw a ghost.
Well, and I was when I was doing World War II reenacting, or not World War II reenacting, Civil War reenacting. There's a place down here called Murphy's Landing where our group had sole rights to be at. So we would go out and we would do weekends for like Memorial Day weekend, or we would go out and do World War II or Civil War weekends. And they would let us sleep on site. So we would have our dog tents set up and we would sleep out there. Well, one night I had to go to the bathroom and I was like, well, I'm just going to walk into our little town to the new Flushies that they built. So I went in there, and on my way back out of the town, there's called the Vilke House, and it's Norwegian. And it was owned by Mr. Vilke. He was a very prominent person that lived in that house. And my friends actually staffed that house for the winter program. And they had always said, hey, when we go in there, we say hi to the Vilkes, we talk to them, just to make sure that they know we're there. And they're, just to make sure that they know that we're not messing with things. We're going to put stuff back if we move it or whatnot. And they had always said that. I was skeptical at the point, this was before my Camp Ridgely experience. So I was a little bit skeptical, and it's like, yeah, whatever, he's just blowing smoke. But it was just me. I had a lantern and I was walking back and was walking back, and I could see the Vilke house, and I noticed a flicker of light up in the upper window. And I was like, okay, I know none of us are in there. Nobody has a key for the buildings. And then I looked again, and it was Mr. Vilke standing in the window. And just as I looked up, he's brushing the curtains back, and he's got a light, and he's standing in the window. And he let the curtains go, and he waved at me. And I just, okay, I'm seeing this. This is happening. So I'm like, hey, wave back at him. How you doing? And I picked up a little bit of speed, and I went back to camp, and I saw Harley and Patience. So Harley was our commanding officer. Patience was his wife. And I'm like, yeah, so you're not going to think I'm crazy, but I just saw Mr. Vilke. And I told them all about it. They're like, oh, yeah, that's nothing. He stands in that window all the time and waves at everybody. So,
I mean, still, it's a pretty awesome experience to see it,
Right. And you're gonna have the hardcore skeptics, and then you're gonna have guys like us where it's like, I know everybody has an explanation for it, but I can't speak away and justify seeing what I saw.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you were meant to see it. at that time because you're the one who got up and used to use the flushy, you know, and that was your time to see it. Obviously, other people have seen it too, but that was your time to see it.
Mhm.
You know, I'll tell you about my first real paranormal experience I had. I was with ASPS, All Seeing Paranormal Society, here in Richmond, and we were investigating a antique shop, and we were taking turns. Like I took the first run because it's a small shop, and to trying to get two teams in there to investigate would have been hard because you would have heard each other talking. So I took owner's sister and her boyfriend, and we did a investigation, and we got an EVP of like a black man saying, "Why are you here?" It's very very clear, but I didn't know I got that till I got home. So when Howie's team went in, we went behind the see where the shop was set up. You come in the front door, and then the cash register, it was towards the back on a glass case, and then there was a little room behind it, like a cubby, little room behind it, like a cubby type thing. So we sat behind the cash register, and you know we were talking, but not that loud, where it would make a difference, you know. So we were kind of just joking around, and I look up and I see Howie's. I see his bald head, and he slams his hand on the counter. Like I'm like, oh crap, we must be being too loud. So about a half, we're like, and both my friend was sitting next to me, and he saw it too. And he was like, oh crap. So you know, we kind of just quieted down for the next half hour, and then when he was finished, I come up and ask him like, hey man, I'm sorry about being so loud. Everything okay? He was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you know, you came over here, excuse me, and you slammed your hand on the counter. He's like, no, I didn't. I was on the other side of the store the whole time. I never came over here. But we both saw it, and we both heard him slam this hand. I could see it in my head right now. And he was like, "No, that wasn't me." And he's not the kind of person who would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck with him," you know.
So a doppelganger situation almost then.
Yeah, and I did have another experience when I was a kid, but I don't know what it was, but I was just watched North and South with my dad, and I'd gone to bed, and I woke up and I looked on my desk, and I see these two little people dancing on my desk. One had the long scabbard coming out like the sword, and another one was in a big hoop dress, and they were dancing about the size of, like, what do you think of leprechauns, dancing on my desk. And I rubbed my eyes and everything, and I was like, you know, I must be dreaming. And nope, they were still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like an Indian in the cupboard kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'd never seen anything like that again. But again, I don't know if that's because I was watching the movie, I was projecting or something. But
right.
You know, I want to know what they found in the bucket. If they figured out what was in the bucket in that house.
Right.
Did they ever find out, or did they just kind of?
I went back to Washington State and I lost touch with them. I never did hear.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Those old houses, though, man, those are awesome, especially down there.
There was
those plantation houses.
I explored every inch of that house.
Now, Dan, didn't you say you had a out-of-body experience at one point in time?
Oh, yeah. When I was little kids, cousins were all down at Grandpa's house in Red Wing. And kids, I don't know what it is with kids and marching, but we all marched in a line. We went through the kitchen, through the dining room, through the living room, out through the covered porch in the back through Grandpa's bedroom, and then out into the kitchen and then around. We were just going around and around, and all of a sudden, boop! I'm up in the corner of the room, watching us all march by, including myself. And I'm just sitting there out of body, just looking at all of these kids going by. And I'm like, oh, yeah, those are my cousins. And I wasn't freaked out or anything. It was just really strange. But I mean, to this day, it's as clear as a bell. And then, boop, I wasn't there anymore, and I was marching.
That's weird. That is
weird. That is the weirdest thing that's ever happened.
What do they say that leads up to an NB? Is it just because is it the soul leaving the body for a certain point of time, or?
I mean, lots of times it's like, traumatic experience, but you were just marching, and all of a sudden you were like, oh, okay, I'm no longer, and I'm not. I'm watching myself march.
Yeah,
the corner of the ceiling,
and I saw myself march by, with all my cousins,
There's astral projecting, where you can travel to different places in your mind.
Yeah.
And I know there are people who do that, but it sounds like you're astral projecting when you were a kid, but didn't even know it, and you didn't know how to control it because yeah, but you didn't know what it was, so you weren't able to really hone in on it because you didn't know what was going on,
right?
And
well, and I've done that one time. I watched myself sleep for about 5 minutes, and then I was back in my body. It was weird. As soon as that happened, I woke up and I'm like, okay.
I wonder if it's a genetic thing.
I don't know. Or, is the whole astral projection thing, is that coupled with remote viewing?
Dennis is a remote viewer.
Yeah.
I ask him, has he ever had that experience where, he watches himself?
Right. Well, I would definitely love to have him back on the show. It was good to have him on the show.
Yeah, he's a good interview for sure.
So we're just about we're 52 minutes in, so we got under 10 minutes. So is there anything interesting you have coming up in the future for shows that you'd like to talk about, or?
Oh, I am booked solid until I think September, October. Probably now that I booked solid through November.
Wow.
So
I'm only booked through July so far.
Well, I mean, it's I did have a few double books. I had to move stuff around and stuff, but I think every guest I have is going to be awesome until they come on and they're not. So I'm just gonna, sometimes the guests aren't great, but
yeah,
I like to have as many people on as possible.
Well, and then you get situations like I've had technical difficulties. I've had people call in and say, "Hey, I've got personal or family problems that I've had to reschedule," and you just roll with it. I mean,
go with the flow, man.
Case in point, tonight, you guys having you guys on here was an ad hoc. I don't want to cancel again. So,
and it comes to a point where it's like you get so used to doing the show that it's like I don't want to cancel the show because I just want to have something on.
Right.
But there are, like, sometimes you'll have a guest on that doesn't really talk much, and you've got to really work hard to get an hour's worth of conversation.
Right.
You're a good, but I'm talking about like giving like 1 or 2 word answers, and just kind of like, and you've got to just like, okay, what am I going to ask him next? Because I've asked all my questions, and we're 5 minutes into the show type thing.
Did they not really want to be on the show?
That's the thing. You don't. Yeah, exactly. Are you sure you want to be here? But that hasn't happened for a while, and that's most of the time, I like have people on. They're really good, and you got to remember that these people we have on aren't professionals. Just like I'm not professional,
Right.
or some people are just better at talking.
We didn't go to Brown College to do this,
Yeah, exactly. Adrian says people get shy, and that's true. That's why I try to keep it very lighthearted and stuff. I don't ask the really hard, what, technical questions.
Right.
That I won't even know the answer to. I try to keep it very basic and stuff.
Where were you on Sunday at 4:00?
Exactly. Or what happened at this house on, April 23rd, 1863 or whatever. And I don't know.
Right.
If people are nervous enough as it is, just ask basic questions that people can answer off the top of your head, like what's your best experience, stuff like that.
Yeah. So
when I have them on again, make it more technical.
What do you have planned for next Tuesday?
We have Whitney Zahar. She is a author. Actually, I have 2 authors coming on the show this week and then next week. And then, so yeah, that'll be fun.
Cool.
Talk to them.
Yeah, I have next Friday. I have a friend of mine. She lives in Fargo. That's the one that can sense pictures. CJ Marie. She's going to come on and talk about living with attached items.
Oh. She's the one who can sense pictures.
Yep. So she can sense pictures, but she's also grown up in her childhood house. They always had attached items around. Like they would go out and to antique stores and buy things. And you never know when you go to an antique store if anything has anything attached to it.
What's going to follow you home?
Right. Well, and
that's true. Yeah.
Same thing when you go on investigations. And I think that's the biggest thing about whoever you believe in, whatever you believe in, having your right of protection. I'm just seeing this from the outside. I haven't done an investigation yet, but I see a value as a Lutheran, as a Christian. I see a value as not only when you show up for a prayer of protection, but as it's been proven by the Ghost Adventures crew, when they get stupid and do some things, prayer of protection before you go home.
Plus, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't really take much time to say a quick prayer before you go into any location.
Right.
And it's better be safe than sorry.
Yeah. Is there a standard thing that you do that your go-to thing every time you go somewhere?
I mean, I just say, dear Lord, I make up a prayer. Dear Lord, please protect me during when I go on these, go into this house. Don't let anything follow me home. Type deal. But the people pray to people pray to archangels for protection, or they'll they'll pray to whoever God or deity they believe in, or they'll bring stones and stuff,
right,
to protect themselves. Or sometimes I'll look online on my phone. I'll find something to say.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it pretty much boils down to the situation and what you've been feeling at that location. Mm-hmm. But I know
I need to do it more.
Right. And I know part of my investigation kit, I've got my tools. I've got my camera, I got my EMF, but what's more important to me is my protection kit. I've got a Bible that is special to me. This Bible that I'm talking about was carried by my grandfather in World War II. It was the soldier's pocket Bible. Unfortunately, it's not signed with his name. That would be cool, but I know for a fact he carried it. So I have that. I have a rosary that I brought back from the Vatican Museum when I went to Italy. And then I have a vial of holy water. And I know those are usually three things that people tend to carry with them at investigations.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm still thinking of doing investigation. I don't know if I want to. And usually, it's not everybody's thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I want to do it. It's just the fact of I don't know what I'm going to run into when I'm there.
That's the truth, man. That's but if you want to do it, if you're prepared for it and you do it the right way, shouldn't stop you from experiencing it, because it is a fun experience when you catch some people you've already seen the person in the window, and you're that's it without even trying. So
Right.
I mean, it's
and I shouldn't say I haven't done investigations, because I've sent EVPs to you. I've done my own little investigations at Dakota City, and I should play at one time, but I was last thing before we go here, but we had a school tour come through, and that's what I would do is I would open up buildings and staff the building while the kids were in. And then when the kids were done eating lunch, I would go and I'd close the buildings up. Well, every morning when I opened it in the individual building, I would unlock the door. First thing I would say is, "Morning, how is everybody? We're doing school tours today." And then the last thing I would do is when I would bring the flags in before I would lock up, I would say, "Okay, we're done for the day." And if we had something doing the next day, I would say, "Okay, I'm going to be in tomorrow at this time. We'll see you tomorrow." And I just had a wild hair one day. I was like, "Hey, while I'm closing up in each building, I'll give myself, a couple of minutes, and I'll record on my phone and do a small little EVP session." I had done an EVP session in 3 previous buildings. Well, I got to the one-room schoolhouse. That was the original one-room school to District 94 that was in Minnesota. And I got in there and I was talking, and I shared this with you, and I've shared it with a couple of people. I knew for a fact that we had kids on site, but the kids were on the other side of the site, not inside of the building. And their voices couldn't reach that far. But I caught kids laughing and playing, and it sounds like they're right outside the door.
It does. Yeah, it sounds like they're right outside the window. Like when you said to me, I'm like, "Are you sure they're?"
I was in the middle of the room, away from any window, and the door was shut.
And you cannot hear anything with your ears when you were.
Nope, I couldn't hear. Nope, I just heard silence. And that's so. Yeah, it's not fair to say. It's not fair for me to say I haven't done investigations. It's just not a full blown investigation. But I've been doing these EVPs in a place where I'm comfortable. And I think that's the thing is I'm okay doing it in a place where I feel comfortable. But once I step out of that safety zone,
it's okay to do that. It just because you're investigating someplace that you're comfortable with, you're still investigating.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to go someplace that you're not comfortable. If you want to keep doing that, go places that that you're familiar with. That's still investigating.
Right. I'm sure I will at some point in time, and I've got a team made up. We're a little split apart right now. We've got 2 members here in Minnesota. I've got a member in upstate New York, and we've got a member in Green Bay. And we're actually thinking of all coming out and investigating at Dakota City. But I don't know if that's going to happen. One of the reasons that I stopped volunteering there is because the people who govern that have all changed. So it's a new group of people coming in, and they're not necessarily have the same views as everybody that's there. They want to do their own thing. So, but and that happens from site to site. I'm sure that happens at like Waverly or something like that every time something changes.
Yeah.
So, well, looking at the clock, we've been in the after party for about 5 minutes. But I've already had my 2 Guinness for the night. I think I'm pretty much done.
Good. Well, I haven't had my Guinness yet, so might have to break out something.
Right. Well, I thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. I know we were shooting from the hip tonight. Sometimes it's fun to do that. Sometimes it's hard to do. I think we went right through 60 minutes pretty easy.
Yeah.
I don't know what that static was about, but that was weird.
Right. Yeah. I can still hear it a little bit, but it's not as bad as it was when we started the show.
Yeah.
So, before we sign off tonight, I just want to remind my viewers, next Friday night, I hope to have co-host Adrian back. We're going to be interviewing CJ Marie. We're going to be talking about growing up with attached things in the house, and also antiquing and bringing how you protect yourself, bringing attached items into the house.
Cool.
So, Ryan, thank you for coming on. It was great seeing you.
You too, brother.
Like I said, if you ever need, if Austin or Rhonda can't help out, let me know and I'll co-host with you.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. And Dan, thanks for coming on and filling in. We should maybe have you back. I know we're going to have you back a couple of more times to talk about your service or your time in the Forest Service. So
yeah, we'll get to some Bigfoot talk too.
That sounds good. All right, folks. Well, I hope you have a good weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Have a good night, folks.